Yo, what up guys, I'm Sammy and welcome back to the Soul Drop, and this is my first impressions look on the Li-Ning Gamma 1. So I finally got this shoe in. I feel like it came out last year or maybe the beginning of this year, right? It's been a while since this shoe came out, but yeah, I finally got it in, and I got this really crazy orange colorway. So it's called the Crimson Moon colorway, and I got it over at vjsneaker.com. So it retails there for around 250 to 300 bucks depending on the colorway, but they do have competitive pricing, and also they do have free shipping worldwide. So yeah, if you guys do want to cop, I try to leave a link in the description box, and also if you guys do have any questions, you guys can always DM me over at Instagram. I try to get to all the DMs. I'm sorry if I'm a little bit late in replying, but yeah, I'm super duper excited. I've been wanting to get this shoe because everyone's saying this shoe is insane, and yeah, from my first impressions, I'm gonna tell you guys right now, this shoe feels crazy. Really, really freaking good, right? So if you guys didn't know, Li-Ning, of course, is a Chinese company, and Li-Ning also owns Way of Wade. So they're using pretty much the exact same tech as Way of Wade, which is, of course, a great thing, right? And Li-Ning also makes some amazing shoes. Not only is the performance insane, but also the tech and like how it's made, it feels really high quality as well, you know? And also the shoe is extremely light, which we'll get into, right? But like usually lighter shoes, like a lot of cheaper shoes, especially from Nike, you know, like their 80, 70, $80 shoes that usually lack tech are extremely light because it lacks tech. So that's why those cheaper shoes are usually lighter, you know what I mean? But with Li-Ning, they actually made a really lightweight shoe, but it doesn't feel cheap at all, and they're giving us like their best tech, you know what I mean? So anyways, let's get started off with the Tracciones. I'm sorry, I'm like pretty dang excited about this shoe, right? So as far as the outsole pattern goes, we got herringbone going throughout the entire outsole pretty much. And what is this? It's like, I don't know, it looks opaque. It looks a little bit translucent to me for some reason, although it's not. But it is GCU, you know, it looks almost like opaque a little bit, but like 98% or something like that, right? So yeah, how does the traction feel? It feels freaking phenomenal. You guys already know GCU stands for ground control unit. It's actually not rubber. They're not using a rubber compound or anything like that. It's actually like a polyurethane compound that they're using. And yeah, they do R&D, and they say, you know, GCU with this rubber compound first of all, is lighter than rubber, right? So rubber compound is like usually heavy, but this is lighter than rubber. Also, it has anti-slip properties, which is going to give you better, first of all, durability, but also grip on multiple surfaces compared to just regular rubber. So yeah, just from my personal experience from Way of Wade and Li-Ning using GCU, pretty much all the shoes that use GCU have really good bites, right? Very solid, pretty much top tier bites. Sobs pretty much just as hard as flows, you know what I mean? So yeah, just from my first impressions, just trying it on my wood floors, has a really nice bite. Also has a nice loud squeak as well. Of course, squeak has nothing to do with performance, but if you like to have a nice loud squeak, this shoe has got you covered. And also, in terms of dust performance, it feels like it'll be pretty good. The grooves are pretty spaced apart. However, the actual herringbone grooves are kind of thick. You know, they're like flat. So it might pick up dust there. You know what I mean? Because if you look at some other shoes, the actual herringbone is like a really thin type of shape. It doesn't really seem like dust will get stuck on top of it. But here with this kind of pattern, it looks like it might get stuck there. So we'll have to see it on dust performance. But just like wearing this shoe for a couple hours in my apartment before filming this video, it did seem to be picking up a little bit of dog hair and dust, but it was still biting through that pretty dang well. Like, look at this. It's it stops so well, you know what I mean? So that feels nice. And also, of course, in terms of durability, it feels like it'll be extremely good, right? So first of all, the actual compound, the material is really freaking hard. The grooves are thick and also deep. So, and also, like I said, GCU, they're claiming that it's supposed to be more durable than traditional rubber. So yeah, you should be fine on an outdoor course. So the traction's feeling extremely nice. And now moving on to the heel to toe transition. So they are using this carbon core drive system, right? And it's pretty much a carbon fiber plate that's sandwiched in between the midsole. You know, always say it's supposed to be more explosive and bouncy than like a bottom loaded or a top loaded carbon fiber plate setup, which I don't really get. Like, why would that like, why would sandwiching a plate in between a midsole give you more bounce? That doesn't make too much sense to me. However, that's what they're claiming, right? But yeah, it feels really, really nice and explosive, you know what I mean? So in terms of the heel, right, we do have a little bit of the boom midsole exposed, right? As you guys can see, we have this kind of like plastic piece, right? It cages the foam just a tiny bit, and also the outsole comes up to cage the actual foam a little bit as well. So it's exposed just a tiny bit, but it still has a nice bit of compression. It doesn't feel clunky at all. Also, we have this nice curve shape, you know what I mean? So it feels really smooth. There's a nice bit of compression there, right? And then coming into the forefoot, also look at this. Crazy curve shape, right? So just from the shape, it has a really nice rocker motion, and feels really smooth in the heel. But also with this carbon fiber plate, right, it is able to flex, but also has a pretty nice kind of like springy, explosive feel, which I do like. And also torsion support seems pretty dang good, right? I mean, like for example, a lot of Nike hoop shoes, like the Sabrina 3, the Tatum 4s, you know what I mean? Even the Jaw 3s, even though those are a little bit less, like the Luka 4s, these are like pretty bad for torsion support and also extremely easy to flex. You know, it has a really soft, flexible, nimble feel, right? But with the Gamma 1s, because of that carbon fiber plate, it's still able to flex, which feels really nice. So it has still a little bit of like a nimble feel, you know what I mean? Because it's not like super stiff like foam posits if you ever played in those, or like Jordan 12s or something like that. So it's still able to flex, but still also has a little bit more of a supportive, stiffer feel with this carbon fiber plate, and again, a nice explosive feel too. So yeah, I really like how this feels. And a lot of high-end Chinese like shoes, you know what I mean, like the more expensive ones with the carbon fiber plate have this very similar feel, right? Like the Wild 12, this shoe, you know, the Eclosions from Anta, you know what I mean? So yeah, there is a heel to toe transition. Moving on to the cushioning setup. So the cushioning setup is pretty dang nice, right? I was a little bit disappointed in the step and comfort though, right? The underfoot cushion feels a little bit stiffer than I thought, but overall it feels pretty dang nice, right? And it feels way better than a setup like the Sabrina 3s, even though the Sabrina 3s is still kind of nice, you know what I mean? So in terms of core feels, I was actually pretty surprised. You know, the Gamma 1s are actually just a tiny bit higher up off the ground than the Sabrina 3s, you know what I mean? So it still has really good core feel, right? The Sabrina 3 has one of the best core feels that you can get right now, right? So really, really good. And then just a tiny bit higher up off the ground is the Gamma 1. So it still has really nice core feel, but still has really nice cushion too, right? So of course it is using full length boom, right? And in this colorway, and also pretty much all the Gamma 1 colorways that I've seen, they are painting the boom, and it has this really cool like reflective shiny color to it. It's like orange and purple, or like orange and pink at the same time, you know what I mean, depending on how the light's like hitting it. But yeah, like I said, we have a little bit of foam exposed here in the heel, so we do have a nice bit of compression, so that feels nice, right? And also from the actual midsole, you know, I was kind of like jumping around a little bit, you know, like running around inside of my apartment a little bit, and also seemed to have a little bit of bounce from the actual midsole as well, which felt nice, right? Also, another thing that kind of surprised me is the insole. So the insole that they're using is boom, right? So it's very, very nice, because I love when like it's sticky. You know, I know some people that don't like it because, you know, when you put the shoe on, it kind of like scrunches your sock underneath your foot, and it kind of like gets really uncomfortable because, you know, there's a little wad of sock right underneath your foot. So I do understand that it's kind of annoying, right? But like the grip is insane. The lockdown from this actual insole, it kind of reminds you of like a drop-in midsole. You guys already know, like the drop-in midsoles that have a really nice texture on there. It gives you really nice lockdown because it like kind of grabs your sock and keeps your foot in place. So the lockdown feels really, really good. And they did it in this shoe, but with of course not a drop-in midsole, but with a boom insole, right? So yeah, the actual insole isn't super thick. It's actually like around the same thickness as a regular insole, which obviously that makes sense. And on the bottom, it's kind of crazy because there's like a herringbone kind of pattern on there. So that feels really sticky, and I'm sure that's there so it helps stick the insole to the actual shoe or the actual struggle board there, right? But also there's like a really fine, crazy texture on top of the insole again. So that feels really nice, and it feels pretty comfortable for the step and comfort. But again, it's not like super thick. It's just like regular insole thickness. So it's not anything crazy, right? And then underneath that, I saw the, you know, full length boom, and you can see the soft mesh struggle board there. So when I saw that, I was like, yo, that looks so nice, so comfortable. I'm super duper excited. And then I pressed it with my finger. It's like kind of stiff, you know what I mean? I don't know what it is. Maybe the carbon fiber plate is kind of like sandwiching the actual foam and it's like cutting it in half. Maybe that's it. But in the heel, it feels like not super plush. It's still kind of nice though. You know what I mean? But I would say it's a little bit stiffer than like the Wild 12. You know, so it still has nice stepping comfort. I'm not saying it's stiff at all, and it's still comfortable, but it's not as soft as I thought it would be. You know what I mean? And also in the forefoot, it feels a little bit stiffer as well. So we'll have to see on how it breaks in though. You know what I mean? Maybe it'll get a little bit softer once I break it in and stuff like that. But right now, it's still soft. There's still a little bit of compression and a little bit of bounce, but not as much as I thought. You know what I mean? Maybe it's because also the core feels really good. Again, it's just a tiny bit higher up off the ground than the Sabrina 3, so it still has really good core feel. So because of that, maybe with this thinner boom, it's not as bouncy and as soft as I thought. But again, it's still a little bit there, right? So there is the cushioning setup there. Moving on to the upper. So they're calling this the Ultra Shell, right? It literally says Ultra Shell right over here. And it's pretty much like a Lenoweave material, but they're saying it's like a TPU yarn, right? So like TPU strands pretty much. So the material is really freaking thin. Look at that. Also, the airflow is crazy through this entire upper pretty much. You can literally just see through it. You know what I mean? There's some open spaces there in the actual material, you know what I mean? So that feels really thin, really soft. And also we do have these really cool overlays as well. It's like very reflective, you know what I mean? So in those kind of spaces where the overlays are, like especially here where your big toe is, it's a little bit stiffer there. You know what I mean? Which makes sense. You want a little bit more durability, a little bit more support, like right over here. It's really soft right over here. And then of course we do have this plastic piece as well that comes up a good amount. We have this really curved shape as well. So that'll help as a sidewall, especially for lateral containment. And then here in the midfoot area, it gets actually a little bit more glued down, right? And also we can see an underlying material with this tongue as well, right? This tongue has it's like a polyester material. It's a little bit foamed. There's a little bit of foam inside of it, but there are also some very thin oval shapes as well, like some cutouts there for a little bit of airflow. It is a half booty construction tongue, giving you a better overall one-to-one fit, but again, it is connected to this very open mesh material that does go underneath this this toe box material as well. So it is double layered, but again, still really thin and still very good for airflow, but still somehow like kind of supportive, especially with these overlays. But also again, the tongue has zero padding. You know what I mean? Which kind of sucks. I don't know. For me, I want to, even if the upper is like really thin and minimal, it just feels really nice. And like pretty cozy and comfortable if the tongue had a little bit of padding, you know what I mean? But for this one, very minimal, you know what I mean? Pretty much zero. And also here on the medial side, you can see just how open this material is as well, you know what I mean? And then here in the ankle area also, very minimal padding, like on the sides, pretty much zero padding, you know? And then here in the back of the heel where your Achilles is, they add up just a tiny bit more, you know, for your Achilles, of course, make it feel a little bit comfortable. You do have this pretty nice cupping shape, but again, extremely minimal padding. Also for the material, it's like this really nice kind of like abrasive material almost, right? So when you come up, it's like it catches my finger and it catches like the material on your sock a little bit. So it kind of like adds to the lockdown just a tiny bit, right? When you go up, right? But when you go down, it's like really smooth feeling. So when you go down, it's maybe like a shark skin. I think it's shark skin. If you guys didn't know, like if you go one way, it's really smooth for the shark skin, but when you go the other way, it's like really rough. That's what it kind of feels like here for the lining material here in the Gamma 1. Also in the back of the shoe, we do have this kind of like plastic material as well. I feel like that does act a little bit like an external heel counter too, especially with this cage too. So yeah, overall this material is extremely minimal, very thin, but with this kind of like TPU yarn and also with the overlays, it gives it a nice kind of like supportive feel where you need the support, which I do like as well. So yeah, if you want a really thin minimal feel for the entire upper, you know what I mean, because there's no padding in the ankle area also for the tongue, then you'll like this, right? The one thing of course I'm worried about is the durability, you know what I mean, but it doesn't feel like it'll be terrible because a lot of shoes I see, especially with like the Kobe 8s, you know, I see a lot of people at the gym with like the Kobe 8s, the material rips like right over here because you're putting obviously a lot of pressure on the upper when you're doing louder movements, when you're hooping and stuff like that, when you're doing cuts, but there are a good amount of overlays there, so it doesn't seem like it'll be a terrible issue, but with this material it still doesn't feel like it'll be super durable, right? So yeah, there is the upper there. Moving on to the fit, so I went true to size and this shoe fits me pretty well. However, it's a little bit weird, right? So it runs a tiny bit long, just a tiny bit. Like I would say my toes go like right over here. So there's a little bit of length, but I probably wouldn't have gone down half a size because this shoe is pretty freaking narrow. You know what I mean? Like it really is squeezing the size of my foot a good amount. Probably has to do with this plastic piece. But I tried this shoe. I tried out. Of course, I put the AR3 on. right? The AR3 also. I put the Eclosions and like a whole bunch of other shoes, the Jaw 3s even, right? Got the Jaw 3s right over here, right? And also the Sabrinas, and all these, right? They have a pretty nice snug fit, but then like when I tried the Gamma 1s on, it just felt a little bit more snug. It felt like it was squeezing more here on the side, so it definitely has a pretty narrow fit. So just be careful with that. If you have a wide foot, probably go up half a size. If you have a normal size foot, you don't mind that too much, then you should be fine going true to size. Just remember it will be a little bit snug width-wise as well. And then here in toe box, it's weird because it feels kind of snug, right? But then like with this kind of like a textile material, it does feel a little bit more forgiving, you know what I mean? So I can curl my toes up a little bit, but when like my foot is laying flat, it does have a pretty nice snug feels. So overall for me, going true to size, it's a pretty nice fit, but it's not like perfect for me personally. So there is a fit there. Moving on to the sport and lockdown, right? So it feels like it'll be pretty dang good, you know what I mean? We'll have to see on if the upper is supportive enough, but like again, like with these overlays, it does feel pretty stiff where the overlays are, you know what I mean? But also here in the forefoot, like I said, we do have this plastic material, right? The acting as a sidewall. We have this kind of like external heel counter as well as this cage, and it feels like there's another internal TPU heel counter. So yeah, it feels like the lateral containment is gonna be good, but we'll have to see on how supportive the upper is. But again, like this material feels way stiffer than like the Sabrina 3 material, and a lot of people are playing in the Sabrina 3s. I played in the Sabrina 3s, and these were adequate for me, but again, like not super supportive, but it was like adequate for support, you know what I mean? The Gamma 1's just, it feels a little bit stiffer, a little bit more supportive than the Sabrina 3, but although again, it doesn't like excel in that support category, especially for the upper. So there is the lateral containment. Also lateral stability feels like it'll be very good because we do have a very nice wide base here in the forefoot. You can see just how much it protrudes out here in the forefoot as well. It's not a crazy outrigger though, but it does protrude out, right? And overall, the heel lockdown feels pretty good because of this like cupping shape that it has inside of the shoe here in the ankle area. So that feels nice. And yeah, overall the lockdown feels pretty dang good. And also again, with the carbon fiber plate, it has a pretty stiff feel compared to shoes like the Sabrina 3 and stuff like that. So there's a support and lockdown there. Moving on to the weight of the shoe. So yeah, for the past like year, I was doing the lightest hoop shoes list, and a lot of you guys were saying, you know, get the Gamma 1s, they're supposed to be the lightest. And I was like, yeah, I want to get the Gamma 1s. I'm sorry, I haven't been able to get it in. So yeah, apparently this was the lightest hoop shoe that you can get, right? Last year, right? So I'm guessing it's gonna be like what, 9-10 ounces? Holy 9.45 ounces, guys. Let's check the other shoe. 9.6 ounces. So let's say around like 9.5 ounces average, right? So yeah, 9.5 ounces is that the lightest? I think the Curry Series 7, which is the lightest hoop shoe, I think, right? The Curry Series 7 is the lightest hoop shoe, I think. It's even lighter than the Ultralights, if I remember correctly, right? And the Curry Series 7 was like 9.7 ounces, I think. And then the Ultralights were like 9 point something, maybe, or it might be around the same, but the Gamma 1's a little bit lighter. So that, here's the new lightest hoop shoe that you can get right now, right? So yeah, the upper feels extremely minimal and feels really, really lightweight, but also still has like a nice cushion setup. You know, it's still comfortable, but it has a little bit more of a responsive, stiffer underfoot feel than a lot of Chinese shoe companies' shoes. You know, for example, like the Eclosions. Even like the AR3 right now, it feels a little bit softer, you know? The Wild 12 feels a little bit softer. The Joker 1 GT feels a little bit softer for the underfoot. So it still has a nice kind of like springy, explosive guard shoe like feel, which I do like, but still like extremely freaking light, but also has a lot more of a supportive feel than a lot of guard shoes from like Nike, like the Sabrina 3, Tatum 4, Luka 4s and stuff like that. So yeah, there is the weight there. Moving on to the aesthetics, I actually really like it. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know, there's something about the actual like the way the fuse goes over the material that makes it look a little bit cheap to me though. And other than that, like I really like the design, the colorways that have come out look really nice. Also, I usually don't like orange, but like this orange color with the kind of like fuse overlays with like this reflective shine to it looks really good to me. I would say for my personal taste though, it's a little bit too flashy, but overall, again, I don't like orange, but I do like this colorway. So tell us what you guys think of the aesthetics down in the comment section below. So wrapping things up, super duper excited to try these out tomorrow. I'm very looking forward to it. But yeah, for my first impressions, it's feeling really nice so far. And again, like it seems really well put together. I love the tech. It feels like an expensive shoe, you know what I mean? I guess the only thing would probably be the durability, you know? But for my first impressions, I'm really liking them so far, and it feels really nice on foot. So anyways, that about concludes my first impressions look on the Li-Ning Gamma 1. Again, if you guys want to cop, I try to leave a link in the description box, but that's it. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next one.